In the news this week, Intel is working on frame generation. It's actually a really cool technical white paper. NVIDIA and the 40 Super refresh is now even more officially unofficial with unofficially official embargo dates. Additionally, Samsung employees, or maybe former ones, accused of stealing and selling trade secrets. And we'll be talking about a golden colored laptop with an Epyc CPU in it, and it is very thick. Before that, this video is brought to you by ID Cooling and the Frozen A620 series air coolers. The Frozen A620 coolers use a dual tower, dual fan design and come in both ARGB and non-RGB variants. ID Cooling has remained largely value focused while keeping performance as good as possible for the price. This is something we talked about with the 216 previously. Check out the A620 for a dual tower cooler for your mid-range gaming PCs at the link in the description below. First story, the alleged leak for NVIDIA's allegedly rumored RTX 40 series with the Super and Ti rumors. Is that enough qualifiers? But for real, these are definitely going to exist at this point. Video Cards published this image, which shows all of the important dates surrounding the 40 series Super launch. Since it's not formalized yet, remember that any or all of this could be changed or be flat out wrong, but most likely we've at least got the parts locked in at this point. It's just coming down to the dates. This shows an announcement date for the 4070 Super, 4070 Ti Super, and 4080 Super. I'm practicing the speed with which I say these names because otherwise our reviews will be 47 minutes long just from the length of the names alone. This lines up with NVIDIA's first time slot at CES 2024. That's also when pointless unboxing videos for the 4070 Super can go live. According to the leak, there'll be a split review embargo, one for MSRP cards only, and then the rest of them a day later as the cards go on sale. NVIDIA's been doing this for a couple launch cycles now, so makes sense. First is the 4070 Super with embargoes on January 16th and 17th, then the 4070 Ti Super on January 23rd and 24th, and finally the 4080 Super on January 30th and 31st. So it seems like the rumor of NVIDIA gluing the Ti and Super names together is holding true here. This is definitely an awkward name, but the reason it might exist like this is because the gap between the 4070 Ti and the 4080 is ginormous at this point. They could fit something else in there, and you can't just make new names. I mean, there's only so many name options that exist. They're all pre-selected. You know, you start your company, and when you spawn, you have to run to grab the best names, and that's why, like at this point, no one can use the numbers 3, 5, 7, or 9. Because they're all using those numbers. Moving on, Video Cards also has this table of rumored specs, but it doesn't have prices yet. If true, the 4070 Super looks like it could be a meaningful jump over the standard 4070, but the 4080 Super may barely move the needle. And check back in early January to see if this alleged version of events pans out, or if something happens and we enter an alternate timeline. Could be better, could be a lot worse. It could definitely be a lot worse. But it could also be a lot better. Up next, Intel working on a frame generation. Intel is working on a frame generation of the same vein as NVIDIA's DLSS 3.0 technology and AMD's fluid motion frames. And this is called Extrapolation and Super Sampling Network, or Extra SS for short. As of the time of writing, it only exists publicly as a white paper presented at SIGGRAPH, with no direct statements on integration into Intel Arc drivers. Researchers from Intel and from the University of California, Santa Barbara worked on the project. It's a very technical read, as white papers generally are, but there are a few key things to extract that don't require a background in graphics programming. For starters, there are two main aspects to Extra SS. One is spatial super sampling, and another is frame extrapolation, or in other words, upscaling and frame gen by the sort of current nomenclature. The upscaling itself is technically distinct from existing methods, but in effect does the same thing as DLSS, FSR, and XeSS. It takes a lower resolution source image and it upscales it while trying to maintain detail and temporal stability. Extra SS's twist on the method involves combining spatial and temporal upscaling to simultaneously upscale and create new generated frames. This effectively reduces the process to a single step. The white paper claims that doing these jobs separately leaves potential performance on the table due to redundant work in the pipeline. The Extra SS approach ends up doing what the paper calls frame extrapolation rather than interpolation. The existing overall method used by DLSS and FMF FrameGen works by interpolating between two fully rendered frames, which leaves the latter rendered frame in the queue to be presented after the generated frame, which induces latency. So the big talk here is latency, because this new extrapolation method, purportedly, would allow Intel and its technology to work off of only previously generated frames for its new frame generation, which should get rid of that latency problem. The rest of what's here is, like we said, extremely technical. Even most of the images in the paper are tricky to understand without an existing knowledge or knowing what you're looking for. However, there are several comparison image sets on page 10 that are pretty easy to just look at. The lower resolution input is on the left, with various upscaling methods in the middle. The far right is true super sampled anti-aliasing, which looks the best, but works by downscaling a higher resolution image. So it's much more computationally expensive than any other method. At this stage, the key questions would be how this gets deployed. So when or if it shows up in Intel Arc drivers, if it's accessible to everybody, or if it's just an Intel thing. And other questions too, like is it game level, is it driver level, how is it deployed in the real world? Regardless, this is really interesting to see new technologies develop. It's cool to see that Intel is still in this game and is pushing on its own graphics technologies, because we need that. Having the third player in the market, it has actually caused some upset in the lower, cheaper end, and that is desperately needed right now. So we're looking forward to seeing where this goes. Up next, 2 former Samsung employees have been arrested in South Korea for suspicion of selling trade secrets in the production of 16 nanometer flash memory to Chinese company Chongqing Memory Technologies, or CXMT. That company is owned by China's largest DRAM manufacturer, which is Inotron Memory, and the estimated damages, according to the Korea Economic Daily, total 2.3 trillion won, to which when I saw that number at first, I was like, surely the exchange rate is such that that must be a much smaller number in US dollars. Still a lot, actually. It's 1.8 billion US dollars in estimated damages. That number could rise as well if the investigation proves that Samsung's market share will fall as a result of the stolen IP. The 2 main suspects are a former senior manager and a subcontractor who previously worked for Samsung. The former senior manager had retired from Samsung in 2016 before being hired at CXMT. The 2 suspects allegedly received tens of millions of dollars from the Chinese company in total compensation for the information, specifically for the fabrication process and the deposition technologies. Dozens of other individuals from Samsung suppliers are also involved in the case. CXMT made a statement to Reuters regarding the allegations, saying that it, quote, respects intellectual property rights and has a robust mechanism to prevent the inflow of third-party information from its employees. Now, whenever any company anywhere in the world says something like that, there's a phrase that comes to mind. It's, what was it again?
Cap.
This is kind of a big deal because the repercussions sometimes aren't evident until many years later. It takes a huge amount of time and effort to actually get a fab online, even with an illicit leg up on R&D. The KED article also states that there have been over 30 semiconductor technology leaks in South Korea since 2018, and that the punishments for these crimes are lenient compared to what they would be in other countries. There's a story we covered sometime in the last couple of years where this happened in the US as well. It was between Micron and, actually it's been between Micron and other companies a couple times now. And a similar type of thing where the employee took the information, went to a new company, brought the information with them, oops. And then there was a similar one like a couple weeks ago about NVIDIA where an employee was doing a presentation and accidentally had some of the code base open from a prior job where that information would have probably been considered a trade secret. So this happens actually a lot. But up next, this is a quick one. Intel's unreleased i3 14100 CPU. They're predictable names, but they're still long names, was briefly listed for sale online at Bottom Line Telecommunications. At the time of writing, the product page states that the company is not accepting orders. It urges not to place an order, and it says it will be removed shortly. The 14100 is shown as having 4 cores at up to 4.7 gigahertz for a price of $150. That's basically the same price as the 13100, or close enough anyway, and it's starting to feel like too much money for Intel's bottom tier. It's not that gaming on a quad core is impossible or something. We've shown that several times. It is actually possible over the last year. At this point, however, it's just another rehash of the 2-year-old 12100. In what is now a second round of leaks, we learn more about the potential existence of AMD's next GPUs. This comes in the form of a regulatory filing. It's a very short story because All we really know right now is that the 7700 non-XT, 7800 non-XT, both of those in XT variants already exist, and the 7600 XT are likely to be launching. It's possible not all of these launch, but we've heard from board partners that the RX 7600 XT does in fact exist, so that much should be true. We're not sure the exact launch dates yet, but we would imagine it probably will align with CES, which is within the next couple of weeks. So that would be right around when NVIDIA is launching its own. Another brief one, GTA 5 has had a source code leak based on a report about a lapsus hack. This is following prior attacks that leaked the GTA 6 trailer and the timing. Rockstar Games is now currently dealing with another alleged hack. This is claimed to be GTA 5 source code, unreleased maps and content, and source code from other projects that's been posted on Telegram and Discord channels from the group Lapsus, which has a history of hacking companies like NVIDIA and Rockstar previously. Source code for GTA 5 could be utilized for development of hacks or cheats. It could be used for less malicious things like mods, or it could be used competitively, although for legal reasons probably shouldn't be, for analysis by other developers. Up next, kind of looking forward to this one actually, the long-standing benchmark software 3D Mark has a new free test coming out called Steel Nomad. This differs from the prior test in a couple of key ways. One of them is the others cost money, like Speedway, for example, Port Royal Time Spy. But the other is that this is specifically a non-ray traced benchmark, kind of like a replacement for Time Spy, which back in the day was one of the most fun benchmarks we used when battling Jay's 2 cents, for example, and overclocking, because it's a really long test, Time Spy that is, which makes it difficult to manage LN2 and stuff like that. So anyway, there's a new one coming out in the first quarter of 2024. This new benchmark is intended to succeed Time Spy and Time Spy Extreme, which are 7 years old at this point, and it's the software's most demanding non-ray trace test. Speedway will still be the heaviest 3D Mark benchmark overall. It includes heavy ray tracing features, so that's why. And Steel Nomad is eschewing ray tracing entirely as an interesting look at the modern landscape, since RT is much more widely accepted now. This new software should help people keep track of how modern GPUs stack up in rendering for highly detailed raster-only scenes. Steel Nomad will be available first for both standard x86 Windows and Windows 4 ARM, and it'll launch on Mac OS and Linux. There'll also be a light version of the benchmark for Windows, iOS, and Android. This next product's kind of crazy, but interesting to look at. It's an Epyc-powered laptop. This is being launched by Janjian Shinjunan Technology Company, and this is a golden 46mm thick device, and it looks like a pizza box with a screen attached to it. Specs-wise, the laptop, or the Yunguai Rev 9, is impressive. It has options including the 64-core Epyc 9554 and an NVIDIA RTX 4080 desktop, 16GB GPU. The company also claims it can be upgraded to the upcoming 4080 Super, which hasn't even been officially announced yet. Oops! There are also claims of a built-in liquid cooler of some kind to manage the heat load. Overall, it's massive, measuring at 420 by 325 by 46 millimeters. But the company claims it can still be carried in a 17-inch laptop bag, and we sort of sincerely doubt that most normal ones would support it, but probably a few do. Other bells and whistles include 240Hz screens, or optionally a 120Hz 4K screen. Additionally, there's a small 3.5-inch display beside the keyboard meant for system stats monitoring. With this kind of profile, the I/O is crazy for a laptop. It has dual 10 gigabit Ethernet, a dedicated IPMI port, 3 USB, and various sound and video ports. This beast of a laptop will be available exclusively on Taobao. It's apparently a custom-built item. We don't know the cost right now. It's probably going to be a lot. Speaking of expensive things, power supply manufacturer FSP is getting ready to launch an absolute unit of a PSU at the pinnacle of its 2024 lineup. This is the Cannon Pro, and it's advertised as being capable of delivering up to 2,500 watts in a long ATX form factor. This thing is massive. It cannot run on standard North American 120 volt AC because that would be crazy. But it's built for 200 to 240 volt. The Cannon Pro will feature an insane 4 PCIe 12 volt 2x6 power connectors, which, as a reminder, is the replacement for 12 volt high power with shorter sense pins. On top of that, it'll have 3 dedicated CPU EPS 12 volt power cables. The power supply is set up with a single 12 volt rail, which is an awful lot of power for a single rail, but it makes it a solid choice for extreme overclockers, especially in places where you have access to 240 volt AC. This, for example, would have been useful when we did our extreme liquid nitrogen overclocking stuff with AMD and the new Threadripper CPUs. It's listed under the special edition section of FSP's roadmap, along with a paltry 2000 watt model. I mean, 2000 watts. Are you even using Intel at that point? And this power supply also has no warranty listed currently. If this were 2 years ago, we'd be tempted to say that this product is aimed at the cryptocurrency mining market, but that ship has mostly sailed. CableMod is currently issuing a voluntary recall for its angled adapters. This is specifically for the angled 12 volt high power adapters, not for the cables. This is for reasons that CableMod calls, quote, safety concerns. Currently, what we know is that CableMod has issued a recall on its 12 volt high power angled adapters. This affects 90 degree and 180 degree versions of the 1.0 and 1.1 options. The former of these has already seen a replacement offer posted in the past, and CableMod has been working with the US CPSC in order to issue this voluntary recall. At this time, CableMod hasn't posted complete details with how it's handling the recall or what the offers are to customers. So we checked with one of our lawyers just to ask about how this process works in the US, because recalls are like there's a whole specific set of law around it. The CPSC is a consumer protection agency, and they have to be involved for any kind of major recall. Anytime the word recall is used in a formal sense, they get involved. So we spoke with the lawyer just to ask how it generally works, and our lawyer noted that, generally speaking, until the CPSC approves all of the details, including how CableMod is handling the whatever they choose for replacement or refund or whatever the option is for making the customers whole, as you might phrase it, until they approve it, we won't have those details. CableMod cannot provide further detail, and so we're kind of waiting on a mix of the CPSC, the government agency, approving CableMod's plan and CableMod then announcing it. For now, though, the company has stated the following, quote, this recall will apply only to our angled adapters and will not affect our angled cables. We'll be sending out an official notice of and full details for our voluntary safety recall in the upcoming days. In the meantime, owners of the CableMod 12 volt high power 1.0 and 1.1 angled adapters should, all caps, stop using them immediately. Please do not touch the adapters while your system is running. I mean, that sentence is just true for any cable. You should turn your computer off first. So that's not anything specific to them, the not touching them while the computer's on, but the rest of it is. They say to please reach out to our customer service if your GPU has been affected by a failed 1.0 or 1.1 angled adapter, and we'll help you out. They say we apologize for inconveniencing our loyal customers, and we hope that you will let us make it up to you in the future. And again, at the time of filming at least, we're still waiting for full details, so we'll follow up as soon as we have them. Breaking news, NASA has received a transmission from a spacecraft nearly 19 million miles away using near-infrared laser. It's a cat video. An 8K cat video, actually, of a cat named Taters that NASA sent to itself as part of its deep space optical communications experiment. Personally, I think that's BS. I think what actually happened is someone at NASA said, I'm gonna email this video to myself because I like it so much I wanna watch it later. They accidentally used the wrong email address, sent it into space and back, 19 million miles. To be clear, NASA didn't send Taters into space. Although scientific evidence points to the increasingly likely fact that cats originally came from space and are, in fact, our leaders. The test used the brand new flight laser transceiver to transmit the 15-second video at 267 megabits per second back to the Hale telescope at Caltech's Palomar Observatory in San Diego County in California. Latency was just over 100 seconds, not milliseconds, which by gamer Earth standards is atrocious, but we haven't found a way yet to make the speed of light any faster. That amount of bandwidth is actually incredible, considering the distance and the precision involved. As a side note, it's funny to see that NASA uses plain old cable ties to manage the wires on this state-of-the-art pinnacle of human engineering. Maybe they're special deep space rated cable ties though. NASA also has a cheat sheet that displays the meaning of all the various details contained within the graphics of the video, like the visual test patterns and the fact that Taters is apparently on life number 5 of 9. Honestly, the only thing that didn't strike us as shocking in this entire story was the fact that it was a cat video. That does actually seem like the most obvious choice. I mean, if it gets intercepted, we want those intercepting it to be fearful of us, and seeing taters will probably instill deep fear. The aliens will see taters knocking a glass off of a table and immediately turn their ship around. What kind of chaos do these beings cause? For seemingly no reason. This kind of technology is insanely impressive to read about. It's very much needed, of course, for future space exploration or research. And the laser communication system is part of the larger Psyche mission led by Arizona State University. Its ultimate goal is to orbit and analyze a 140-mile wide all-metal asteroid in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. So when the aliens get here and say, take us to your leader, we can say, taters is the one. We all salute taters. We should make a monument to taters. I just like that his name is Taters. Up last, some quick GN notes on our factory tour series. The first episode just went live. We have another one coming up in the immediate future on Saturday, and wanted to talk a little bit about that for those of you who are interested in the series, because this has been a passion project for the team. We are thrilled about this. I personally am really excited about the factory tour videos we have coming up. We've made these for years now, but we've never done it quite like this, where we collected footage over the past year. None of it has seen the light of day. So this is all gonna be new material that we've been kind of silently collecting, and we put together a whole season. So there's gonna be an entire, like every Saturday, 8 a.m. Eastern time or GMT -5, we have a new episode going up showing how the stuff in the PC industry is made from an educational standpoint, but they're also really entertaining because we cut them and produce them in a way where, I mean, they're fun. They're really fun to watch. They've been awesome to work on. This is the type of video that the team loves working on here. I worked very closely with Vitalii on the editing for the first one that's going up, and he and I were experimenting with all kinds of new editing styles, and it's been awesome to work on. So check those out every Saturday. There might be one live already, depending on when this news video airs. Another cool thing about these, we are converting them to articles too. So they're gonna go on gamersnexus.net, which we have not done for factory tours. So there'll be a long-term reference of talking about processes like anodizing or different types of machining, CNC work, electrophoretic deposition, all that stuff is going to written format too. The hope is that we're providing some actually educational stuff, just in a fun format. So the newest series involves footage, again, that we've collected in secret over the past year. We're finally ready to let it see the light of day. You're seeing some of it now, actually. And we're showing case manufacturing. We have a CPU fabrication plant. That one we can't show you yet, but it's gonna be a keystone here. We have RAM automation and manufacturing, bearing manufacturing, and a lot more. Most of the factories opened up a lot, and they were just like, let us show you our super secret cool machine that we designed here, and you can share it. So what's new here is the editing format, but it's also being treated almost like a TV show where we've organized it, produced it, we have scheduled uploads, all that stuff. So extremely excited about it. We would love for if you checked it out, and these are big time and money investments. They don't get the same return as, say, a pre-built review, which is relatively easy, but we think they're important pieces of information, and we just like making them. So as long as the community keeps supporting these types of videos, and really by support, the number one thing is just watching it or sharing it with your friends. That's the most important to us. If you want to do more direct support, of course, you can always go to store.gamersnexus.net, and right now we have a brand new, check that out, mouse mat with a bright yellow underside that contrasts nicely with the bright blue stitching at the border. So we just launched these. These are limited. They mark the arrival of our final entry of the 15-year anniversary product lineup that we launched this year. And they're directly funding our next flights and hotels and travel, which GN pays for all of that for the factory tour season that we want to make in 2024. We might do 2 of them. We'll see how frequently we can get out to different countries. We're in talks with some factories in Germany. We're in talks with plenty in Taiwan and China. And there's one in the US that I'm talking with as well. So we have a really cool season lineup for next year too. And this mat plus all the other products we sell in the store are directly funding that travel. Just as a reminder too, the tours aren't like sponsored. We could get paid to make those videos. A lot of money, actually. They would pay enormous amounts of money for us to go there and document the process and show how great the factory is or whatever. But we go there on our own dime, and we maintain full editorial control over it, which also means we get to show things like some of the harsh realities of factory life too. So that's our promise to you all, is to keep funding our own trips out there and do that with the help of the audience. The new mat has an all-over component print. It features things like GPUs, CPUs, small surface mount devices scattered around with the high-resolution print. You should also check out our GN15 metal emblem glass, which has a custom-made metal badge fixed to the glass and includes an extra with each order. You might also like our 3D coaster packs with 4 unique PC designs per pack, each representing PC parts like RAM, motherboards, and the motherboard one actually even has a 7-segment display, and an SSD, plus a GN logo. There's not a lot more to say about this other than check back every Saturday at 8 a.m. as GMT -5 or EST, and you'll see a new video for it. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. As always, subscribe for more. You can go to store.gamersnexus.net to help us out directly, like with our factory tour series, and you can go to patreon.com/gamersnexus. And we have a big week lined up for the week of January 1st, including the disappointment build. So you'll want to check back for all of that. We'll see you all next time.